For today, where are we? Here we go. 200 years ago, Immanuel Kant was talking about means and ends. For he thought it was important that people understand that people, relationships, are ends in themselves, and we should not get confused and use people as a means of getting other outcomes, other results. So this somewhat tracks along with what we'll read tonight. Just know that Immanuel Kant was grappling with the distinction between what are the ends that matter and what are the means to getting there. And if that's not clear to you, we will expand on that in just a moment. So the title is along this very line. It's about consistency between means and ends. Welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader for tonight is Julie. So I said that we'll go explain this a little bit more. And so let's just understand our terminology here. When we say the end, we mean the goal, the outcome, the purpose for which something we set ourselves upon. And the means, in contrast, are the way we achieve the outcome, the method, or the path. In somewhat common vernacular, the goal is your talk. I want to love everybody. But in order to walk that talk, you have to use the proper means of learning to love everybody. So this is not a perfect translation, walk and talk, but it's very similar. And in the Holy Spirit's paradigm, the purpose and the method are consistent. For in other words, let's say it another way, that for a holy purpose, we use a holy method for achieving that goal. You would not expect to achieve a holy purpose with an unholy method. But when we layer the ego confusion into this picture, what we get is a whole different perspective. Now the ego has a different goal, and its goal is dark and death and sin and confusion. And then it uses different methods for achieving that goal. And that should be fairly clear to you, holy methods, holy goals, and unholy methods for achieving unholy goals. So what's the issue here? The issue is when we set, at least in theory, say that we want salvation, we want happiness, we want peace, but then we use an ego method to approach that. And this becomes inconsistency between ends and means. You can't use the ego's methods to achieve the Holy Spirit's purpose. So that's a primer on means and ends. That's the language we're going to use tonight. But we're talking about these distinctions here. So with that in mind, let's see what it says in the course.
We have said much about discrepancies of means and end, and how these must be brought in line before your holy relationship can bring you only joy. But we have also said the means to meet the Holy Spirit's goal will come from the same source as does his purpose. Being so simple and direct, this course has nothing in it that is not consistent. The seeming inconsistencies or parts you find more difficult than others are merely indications of areas where means and end are still discrepant. And this produces great discomfort. This need not be. This course requires almost nothing of you. It is impossible to imagine one that asks so little or could offer more.
In many ways, this intro paragraph says it all. So again, when our means and our ends are consistent, everything lines up. The problem is when they are inconsistent. This is what they're referring to, the discrepancies of mean and ends that are not in alignment. Because after all, when we begin this program, we're still mostly familiar with how the ego gets things done. And then we set our mind towards this new goal of the Holy Spirit, but we still haven't learned new behaviors, new habits, new thought patterns, and responses that are consistent with that. And so there's a learning. It says they must be brought in line before you can experience only joy from them. So the reward function here of means and ends being consistent is joy. This has long been my goal with the Course in Miracles, to be joyous as a result. It's like one of the highest experiences that we can have. So know that in the Holy Spirit's plan, both the goal, the end, and the method, the means, both have the same source. They're both from the Holy Spirit. There's no ego contribution in a consistent means and ends. And so, as we said, the problem is when we still resort to old habits to try to achieve this new goal. This is when they are discrepant. And it says something that's very telling. When they are discrepant, this produces great discomfort. This should be something that if you pay attention, you'll be able to recognize how it feels in yourself when you wind up engaging in ego approaches, guilt, judgment, fear, anxiety, whatever form it takes. It's not peaceful. It feels fragmented, like it's easy to ignore these feelings, but if you pay attention to them, it doesn't feel tranquil and it doesn't feel right. It feels something's off there. It produces great discomfort, which is not necessary, because it's not necessary that we continue using ego approaches to dealing with our life situations. In fact, the Course says you need do nothing but surrender your old approach into the hands of the Holy Spirit.
period of discomfort that follows the sudden change in a relationship from sin to holiness may now be almost over. To the extent you still experience it, you are refusing to leave the means to Him who changed the purpose. You recognize you want the goal. Are you not also willing to accept the means? If you are not, let us admit that you are inconsistent. A purpose is attained by means, and if you want a purpose, you must be willing to want the means as well. How can one be sincere and say, I want this above all else, and yet I do not want to learn the means to get it?
Mm-hmm. So let's consider for a minute. We're going to make the assumption that everybody that's attending this and taking of your valuable time of your life to pursue A Course in Miracles, that you agree with the goal. You want to be happy. You want to be at peace. So that's easy. To the extent you still experience discomfort, the period of discomfort, to the extent you still experience that, you're refusing to leave the means to the Holy Spirit. And here's how that shows up in my life. So in the morning, I do my workbook lesson. God is the love in which I forgive. God is the love. And I contemplate all those things and add my own thoughts to it. And then I go about my day. And things happen that, like most people's lives, and I am less than perfectly forgiving. I wind up responding to situations according to my old self or my ego self. And so this would be employing the wrong means. This makes it inconsistent. I can't be totally forgiving or I can't be loving if I'm at the same time judging, finding grievances, and assigning guilt either to other people or to myself. That's inconsistent. That's what causes the discomfort. The nice thing about this is if you really pay attention to how you feel, you'll start to learn when you're at your highest self, when you're at your miraculous self, and you'll notice how different it is when you fall into ego temptations, because it just doesn't feel authentic, doesn't feel real. Okay, so we've highlighted the inconsistencies here.
To obtain the goal, the Holy Spirit indeed asks little. He asks no more to give the means as well. The means are second to the goal. And when you hesitate, it is because the purpose frightens you and not the means. Remember this, for otherwise you will make the error of believing the means are difficult. Yet how can they be difficult if they are merely given you? They guarantee the goal, and they are perfectly in line with it. Before we look at them a little closer, remember that if you think they are impossible, your wanting of the purpose has been shaken. For if a goal is possible to reach, the means to do so must be possible as well.
Mm-hmm. This paragraph speaks to one of the biggest, should I just call it complaints of miracle students, where they will make statements like, this course is really hard. it's really difficult. It's, my ego is so entrenched. I'm having such a hard time freeing myself from it. And I've heard hundreds of people make some statements along those lines. Okay. Well, here it untangles that. And by first saying that the means are secondary to the goal, it's like, um, what is it, a stepping stone along a path. Once you've finished that stepping stone and moved on, the stepping stone no longer has any value. It's secondary. What's primary is that you continue to move forward along the path towards your goal. It's not in each step you take, although in the moment, in the present moment, that's the most important thing you could do in that moment is to take the next step. But once you've taken it, you've taken it. You move forward from there. So the means are second to the goal. Nevertheless, miracle students often feel like this course is so difficult. This is the error of believing that the means are difficult. And so, take my word for it, that symptom appears in the minds of miracle students. But the Course says the real issue is that when you feel some reluctance about the means, the real issue is the purpose is so sublime, so elevated that you could be happy and joyous, that you could be transformed, that you could feel inner peace and share that inner peace in all your relationships, have holy encounters. That purpose is so sublime that to the little mind, it's frightening. And so we wind up, so it's not the means that make it appear difficult to us, it's our lack of total acceptance into our mind of the goal as our own goal, as something we genuinely want for ourselves. We would call it holy relationships. I want the Holy Spirit's plan for holy relationships as my own. That is I'm totally committed to that. And once we're no longer afraid of the purpose, then we'll no longer make the error of believing that the pathway to get there is difficult or impossible. And the logic here is very clear. If a goal is possible to reach it, and we're talking about the Holy Spirit's goal is possible to reach it, then the means to do so must be possible as well. If it's logically consistent, if the goal can be achieved, then there must be a path to obtain that goal. So, what are we to do with all that? Realize that the Holy Spirit's means can be trusted, but where the issue really lies is we may not be committed to the goal as fully as we professed to be committed. Holy relationships, inner peace, having your peace, bless others, and operate as a transformational power in all your relationships, that is a lofty purpose. For indeed, it's not frightening, but from the ego's little mind, the magnificence of it is definitely overwhelming to the little mind.
It is impossible to see your brother as sinless and yet to look upon him as a body. Is this not perfectly consistent with the goal of holiness? For holiness is merely the result of letting the effects of sin be lifted, so what was always true is recognized. To see a sinless body is impossible, for holiness is positive, and the body is merely neutral. It is not sinful, but neither is it sinless. As nothing, which it is, the body cannot meaningfully be invested with attributes of Christ or of the ego. Either must be in error, for both would place the attributes where they cannot be, and both must be undone for purposes of truth.
So I know we've covered this before, but we're going to restate it because does get people confused. What is the Course of Miracles view of the body? Think of it as a white canvas, a blank canvas. It has no message, no meaning whatsoever. The mind comes along and paints, so to speak, metaphorically, paints the canvas with what the mind believes the body is about. And it can, for the body itself, is neutral. It's only the mind that conveys a meaning to the body. And of course, the ego will convey to the body that surely it means death and pain and suffering, the pain body. Whereas the Holy Spirit says, oh no, we can use your body to communicate to others and share the message, be helpful, and help others to heal. The body can be holy when used for a holy purpose. So, in and of itself, it's neutral. It's the mind that projects onto the body, what am I going to use this body for? So that's the theory. And then we have to learn to adapt our attitudes and our responses and our thoughts and feelings towards the body to be consistent with that principle. That can take a while because we have to unlearn all those mental attitudes towards the body that we acquired in the past, have to be willing to surrender them in order to make room for this new view of the body as a means for obtaining the Holy Spirit's purpose.
The body is the means by which the ego tries to make the unholy relationship seem real. The unholy instant is the time of bodies, but the purpose here is sin. It cannot be attained but in illusion. And so the illusion of a brother as a body is quite in keeping with the purpose of unholiness. Because of this consistency, the means remain unquestioned, while the end is cherished. Seeing adapts to wish, for sight is always secondary to desire. And if you see the body, you have chosen judgment and not vision. For vision, like relationships, has no order. You either see or not.
Mm-hmm. So in this paragraph, we're going to look at the ego rendering of these matters, where the holy instant is the time of bodies. And so the ego demands that in order to achieve its goal of lack of love, that we use its means, which would be judgment and fear and guilt. And thus, in that state, we would be consistent, working towards an ego goal, using the ego's approach to that goal. That's consistency. And when that's done, and you can witness this in the world, the means remain unquestioned. Nobody questions that, or generally they just accept that as normal. And what the Course says is they accept it as normal because deep down inside, this is what the ego wants. This is what we call the wish. This is the desire to identify as an ego and have your thoughts and feelings and behaviors all circulate consistently around that ego identity. And that desire or wish is the root that has to be reached and undone in order to free ourselves of the ego identity. As long as that desire to be like an ego, to identify with your ego is there, it doesn't matter what one does on a superficial level. For in other words, you can talk a good talk, but not walk according to your talk. I'm assuming all of you are familiar with what I'm talking about here. So as long as that desire to live according to the ego's guidance remains, then it doesn't matter what our talk is or our outward profession is. Our inward orientation of the things that we treasure and value will remain wrapped up in the ego's matrix.
Who sees a brother's body has laid a judgment on him and sees him not. He does not really see him as sinful. He does not see him at all. In the darkness of sin, he is invisible. He can but be imagined in the darkness. And it is here that the illusions you hold about him are not held up to his reality. Here are illusions and reality kept separated. Here are illusions never brought to truth and always hidden from it. And here in darkness is your brother's reality imagined as a body in unholy relationships with other bodies, serving the cause of sin an instant before he dies.
Mm-hmm. So I was in the fitness center this afternoon with my headphones on, listening to this section, and in particular, this paragraph. And so I'm sitting there doing my, my reps, right? I don't strain a lot, so I can do that and listen at the same time. And there's all these other people around doing their thing. And I don't know their names necessarily. I recognize some faces because people tend to work out at the same time of day. It's like, this is a place I've gone there before. And it says, who sees a brother's body has laid a judgment on him and sees him not? He does not really see him at all. And so while I'm doing all this and I'm wondering, well, how does that make any sense that I don't even see the other person at all? And I realized, or at least the understanding that I got in that moment, is that, and Heather is used this before as well. I don't see his soul at all. If I see only his height and his muscle, people are, they have muscles, right? They're in the gym, you can't help but see, oh, you have a big tattoo all over your forearm or something. I can't help but my eyes noticing them. But what they're talking about here, I believe, is not what we would call their skin, but their soul, so that we don't see the real person, the soul at all, if we're focused on their skin. And then it makes perfect sense. If I'm sitting there, as sometimes I do, for someone that is covered in tattoos, like 70% of their skin is now tattooed. This is still, I'm still getting used to all that. And, sometimes I start commenting to myself about what they went through to get to that point, making up a story or something like that. And when I do that, I'm focusing on their body, their skin, not their soul, and don't see them at all. It's funny because on one or two occasions later on, I had an opportunity to have a brief interaction with that person. And they were so nice and so sweet. They're like, I enjoyed my encounter with them at all. And it was nothing like what was going on in my mind when I was thinking about how much time they must have been in a tattoo parlor to get to that extent. And I'm not, this is not really about tattoos at all, but you understand what I mean, is the eyes attend to the thing in front of me. And when I become preoccupied with that, then I'm not really seeing the real child of God at all. And so the minute I had that, I realized, oh, that's my brother in the spirit there. And really, there are no strangers in the brotherhood. And I had a brief glimpse of another level of perception of the people that were surrounding me. Heather?
Yeah, as you're talking, I realized that's why the term namaste is so beautiful because it automatically addresses that part of them. And in that culture, it's just, I love that that's their first response is that the first thing they want to see as I honor.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. It is a wonderful way of reorienting our response to people. Namaste. I honor the divinity within you. Um, and it's so wonderful. A number of Eastern cultures, that's their default cultural response. Really beautiful. Thank you. So, so the ego would have us attend to those body centric beliefs about others. And of course, if we attend to that about others, then we also attend to that about ourselves. And in so doing, we don't really see them at all. And this, what we are reading about today, is using the whole. I'm going to shift now to the Holy Spirit's approach. The Holy Spirit would have us use spiritual vision and as the means for obtaining the Holy Spirit's goal. And that's really what Namaste is about, is remind you that you have spiritual vision. You can look to others in terms of their inner divinity. And that's where we really see them as they truly are.
There is indeed a difference between this vain imagining and vision. The difference lies not in them, but in their purpose. Both are but means, each one appropriate to the end for which it is employed. Neither can serve the purpose of the other, for each one is a choice of purpose employed on its behalf. Either is meaningless without the end for which it was intended, nor is it valued as a separate thing apart from the intention. This means seem real because the goal is valued. And judgment has no value unless the goal is sin.
So recall that we read a few paragraphs back that the means are secondary to the purpose. The purpose is primary. So we could summarize this as purpose, purpose, purpose. It's the purpose that is frightening, not the mean to the ego, not the means that are used to achieve the purpose. It's the lofty goal, the goal of holy relationships, of union with the Creator and all the members of creation. That holy purpose is what frightens the ego, for that undoes the separation, does it not? Union with all of creation is the end of separation. And so when we say purpose, 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 what we mean by that is that one's commitment, it starts out as belief and faith in that purpose, and then trust in that purpose, and then a deep, abiding commitment to that purpose until it raises to the level of we think of ourselves as our own identity as being part of that purpose. That's who I am. That's what I'm doing with my time here on this earth. I'm living for that purpose in mind. So that purpose becomes woven into our very sense of identity. And when we do that, the means follow. The consistent means of the Holy Spirit follows naturally from that. And as we read in this section, what are those means specifically? If we had to name them, is that we develop spiritual vision, a new perception, a new way of responding to everyday situations, like people working out in the gym, people that you encounter on your way in and out of a doorway, or maybe people that you know very well, neighbors that you haven't talked to for a long time. All those opportunities become seen in the context of this higher purpose. The means which seem real because the goal or purpose is valued. So purpose, purpose, purpose.
The body cannot be looked upon except through judgment. To see the body is the sign that you lack vision and have denied the means the Holy Spirit offers you to serve his purpose. How can a holy relationship achieve its purpose through the means of sin? Judgment you taught yourself. Vision is learned from him who would undo your teaching. His vision cannot see the body because it cannot look on sin, and thus it leads you to reality. Your holy brother, sight of whom is your release, is no illusion. Attempt to see him not in darkness, for your imaginings about him will seem real there. You closed your eyes to shut him out. Such was your purpose, and while this purpose seems to have a meaning, the means for its attainment will be evaluated as worth the seeing, and so you will not see.
Yeah, let's untangle that last thing. As long as we're wrapped up in the ego's matrix, I like calling it matrix. You had to have seen the movie to fully appreciate what we're talking about, a seeming reality that no one questions, that appears to have all the proper attributes of reality, but which is in truth a simulation done by an architect who constructed this artificial matrix reality. When we're caught up in, when that's your purpose, to live according to the matrix, the ego matrix, then this purpose seems to have a meaning. We get caught up in it. We get terribly confused by it and wind up believing that the entire construct is worth our while, is worth living for. We buy into it for a time, and as a result, become blinded to any other alternative interpretation or explanation. So you will not see according to the truth. You'll see only in terms of the ego matrix. So the Course's solution for that is spiritual vision. This is the major undoing. It's contained here in this sentence. Judgment you taught yourself. Every judgment you ever made, your mind was engaged in believing that was justified, that was real. You made it up. You participated in those judgments using the power of your mind, believing it to be real. So it was we didn't know at the time we were employing a egoic based thought system. So judgment we taught ourselves, but spiritual vision is learned from the Holy Spirit, who would undo what we taught ourselves, would undo the judgment of what we taught ourselves. This is the very starting point of the Course of Miracles, the willingness to relinquish one's own judgment of what is real and meaningful and of who we are and why we're here, all the things that we taught ourselves, the willingness to relinquish that so that we could learn from the Holy Spirit a new interpretation, a new perception, which we'll call spiritual vision. You might sense here that all of this is foreshadowing chapters to come that will focus greatly on spiritual vision. We're teeing up that it matters right now, but we're not really unpacking all of what you and I will wind up, our journey will be like with spiritual vision. And so we have that to look forward to. But here it's justifying why you would not want to continue to employ your own judgment that you taught yourself and therefore truly believe those illusions are real. You don't want to continue that path. Instead, your only hope for joy is to be willing to have those judgments undone. And this is where questioning your prior beliefs, prior values, prior sense of meaning and purpose is necessary, for the Holy Spirit would undo your own teaching, your own thought system. It's pretty amazing. I mean, talk about a tall order. So Carl Jung actually was had this insight. He said, we spend the first half of our life, he basically was referring to the first 50 years of your life. The first half of our life acquiring an identity in the world, as we read, adjusting ourselves to the situation in the world and trying to fit into the world. And then we spend the second half dismantling that identity, questioning all those beliefs, all those assumptions. What Carl Jung was, what the Course in Miracles can offer that Carl Jung didn't, is the alternative that would replace the false identity that we had acquired. He would allude to it, but A Course in Miracles, I think, really illuminates the true self extensively in a way that's really attractive, because we have to be induced to surrender all of our self-teachings. And the inducement is the idea of forgiveness leading to inner peace and happiness and healthy relationships, a new perception, ultimately holy relationships, love, and joy. That's the inducement to give up the mess that we had made.
Your question should be, your question should not be, how can I see my brother without the body? Ask only, do I really wish to see him sinless? And as you ask, forget not that his sinlessness is your escape from fear.
Mm-hmm.
Salvation is the Holy Spirit's goal. The means is vision. For what the seeing look upon is sinless. No one who loves can judge, and what he sees is free of condemnation. And what he sees he did not make, for it was given him to see, as was the vision that made his seeing possible.
So this is our concluding paragraph in this section. So if you're standing in line or sitting on a bench watching people go by, or in a fitness center exercising, ask not, how can I see these people without a body? Don't worry. Don't give your power to that topic. Instead, ask yourself, how can I see their soul? How can I recognize them as beings of light? The words it says here is your wish to see them sinless, which in Course in Miracles, I'll remind you, if they were sinless, it means they lack nothing for love. They're full of love. how can I see the love and light in my brother? For it's your desire to understand and see the light that will bring your mind in alignment. You can't battle against the old way of the ego, which is to see their brother without a body, trying to rid yourself of that. That would be really not recommended. What we do recommend is you take a step forward and say, how can I see my brother as illuminated as a son of God? For that's what spiritual vision does, is it allows you to see in a new light. And with that, seeing in a new light, the old way drops off as being no longer of interest to you. I'm going to say this in another way. The old way of judging, of looking at people in a lesser light or in a harsh light, falls away, because when love is available to you to see them kindly, looking at people in a lesser light is there's no, it's distasteful, it's mean. It didn't we read earlier about experiencing great discomfort at that? I'm going to switch and go back for a minute. I'm going to find that. I think it was maybe, yes, the period of discomfort that follows the sudden change in our relationship to holiness. To the extent you still experience it, you're okay. So is that not it? All right. Oh, here it is. This inconsistency between the Holy Spirit's goal, I want to be at peace, I want to practice forgiveness, I want to practice this course, and still using the ego's form of judgment, this produces great discomfort. Those feelings will be your guide. They tell you something is not right here. We can do better than this. Take a time out. Ask for help. So that's as far as we're going to read in this session. Consistency of means and ends. Use it trusting that this path that the Holy Spirit is illuminating, that everything necessary will be provided for you. Your cleverness and ingenuity and figuring things out are not what the path is built upon. It's built upon your desire to let go of the old approach of using your judgment and falling in love with the desire to see in a new light, to see kindly, to be gentle with others and with yourself. That will attract you and pull you forward into the path that the Holy Spirit is teaching. For you can be certain that the Holy Spirit's guidance is always gentle and kind. So thank you all for being here for this. More to come. We'll finish chapter 20 in our next session, and then move on to spiritual vision and future chapters. So thank you all. Julie, thank you for your excellent reading. Namaste.
Thank you, Julie. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Jonica. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.